Once upon a time, there was a young man named John. He was not like other men, at least not in the way people thought. Everyone believed he was just a struggling mechanic, covered in grease and working long hours to survive. But in reality, John was a billionaire who had chosen to live like an ordinary man in search of something money couldn't buy: true love. He had grown tired of women who only cared about his wealth, who smiled at him not because they loved him, but because of the luxury he could offer. So he left behind his riches, his mansion, his expensive suits, and took on the life of a poor man. Every day he worked at Gideon's auto repairs, fixing broken-down cars and earning just enough to eat. It was tough, exhausting, and completely different from the life he once knew. Down the street from the auto shop, there was a small local fast food restaurant. It wasn't anything fancy, just a simple place where people could buy a plate of rice, swallow, or beans and enjoy a good meal. This restaurant was owned by Mama Chica, a strict but hard-working woman. She ran it with the help of her daughter Ruth and her niece Blessing. Blessing had lived with her uncle's family since she was a child. She had lost both parents at a young age, and though her uncle had taken her in, his wife Mama Chica never truly treated her like family. Instead, she made sure Blessing worked harder than anyone else in the restaurant. Still, Blessing never complained. She loved cooking, and despite the way she was treated, she remained kind-hearted and full of life. John started coming to the restaurant every afternoon for lunch. But there was something strange. He always ordered food without meat. Blessing noticed it almost immediately. At first, she thought maybe he just didn't like meat. But after a few days, she began to wonder, was he avoiding it because he couldn't afford it? One afternoon, as John sat in the corner, quietly eating his plain rice, Blessing walked up to him. "Excuse me." John looked up, surprised. "Yes." She hesitated, then smiled. "Why do you always buy food without meat?" John blinked. He hadn't expected the question. He stared at his plate for a moment before sighing. "I don't have money for meat." Blessing's heart squeezed. She had suspected it, but hearing him say it out loud hit differently. He looked so tired, so worn out from work, yet he never begged, never complained. "You're a mechanic, right?" she asked. John nodded. "Yes, I just started working recently. Things are hard." Blessing swallowed hard. She knew what it was like to struggle. She had spent her entire life working hard, never having enough, always making sacrifices. That night, when she lay in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about the mechanic who couldn't afford meat. The next day, when John came to the restaurant, something different happened. As Blessing served his food, she secretly added a piece of meat to the plate. Then, as she placed it in front of him, she leaned down and whispered, "Don't tell anyone." John stared at the plate in shock. He looked up at Blessing, then back at the food. "But just eat," she said, giving him a small smile before walking away. John hesitated. No one had ever done something like this for him before. No one had ever cared. He picked up the meat, his throat tight with emotion, and took a bite. It was the best meal he had ever tasted. The next day, it happened again. And the next. Every afternoon, when John ordered his usual food, Blessing would quietly add a piece of meat to his plate. And every time, before walking away, she would whisper, "Remember, don't tell anyone." At first, John felt guilty. He didn't want her to get in trouble, and he didn't want to take advantage of her kindness. But each time he tried to refuse, Blessing would shake her head and say, "Just eat." Slowly, something began to change between them. John started looking forward to lunchtime, not just because of the food, but because of her. He found himself watching Blessing more, noticing the way she smiled, the way she treated people with kindness, even when they didn't deserve it. She wasn't like any woman he had ever met. One evening, as the restaurant was closing, John waited outside. When Blessing stepped out, he cleared his throat. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said softly, "for everything." Blessing laughed. "It's just meat, John." "No," he said, shaking his head, "it's not just meat. It's kindness." Their eyes met, and for a moment there was silence. Blessing finally broke it with a playful smile. "Well, you can pay me back when you become a rich mechanic." John laughed, but deep inside, her words stung. As he walked back to his small apartment that night, John realized something. This small act of kindness had changed everything. For the first time in his life, he had met a woman who cared about him when she thought he had nothing. The next day, Blessing was in the kitchen, carefully placing a piece of meat into John's food. She knew what she was doing was risky, but she couldn't help it. John was struggling. He never asked her for anything, but she saw how he ate his plain rice every day without meat. She couldn't stand by and watch him suffer when she had the chance to help. As she picked up the tray, ready to take it to him, Ruth walked in. Her sharp eyes immediately landed on the plate of food. "Who are you going to serve that food?" Ruth asked, folding her arms suspiciously. Blessing hesitated for a moment before sighing. "It's for John. I just pity him. Please don't tell Mummy." Ruth's eyes widened in shock. "John," she gasped. "You mean that dirty mechanic?" Blessing nodded slowly. "Ruth, please, he doesn't have money for meat. I just wanted to help." "So you have a boyfriend now?" Ruth clapped her hands dramatically. "And not just any boyfriend, but a poor mechanic. Ah, Blessing, you have disgraced yourself." Blessing quickly placed the tray down and grabbed Ruth's arm. "Ruth, please don't tell Mummy, I beg you." Ruth shook her off and laughed. "You think I will keep quiet? You are here stealing my mother's meat for a man, and you think I won't talk?" Before Blessing could stop her, Ruth ran out of the kitchen, shouting at the top of her voice, "Mummy! Mummy, come and see what Blessing is doing." Mama Chica stormed into the kitchen like a raging lion, her face twisted in fury. "What is all this noise?" she barked. Ruth pointed at Blessing, her voice filled with excitement. "Mama, come and see. Blessing has been stealing your meat to feed that mechanic. She even calls him John, like they are husband and wife." Blessing's heart pounded in fear. Mama Chica's eyes flashed with anger as she turned to Blessing. "Is it true?" she demanded. Blessing's hands shook. "Mama, I was just helping him. He has no money for meat." A slap cut her off, sharp, stinging. Blessing stumbled backward, her vision blurring with tears. Mama Chica didn't stop. She grabbed the plate from the counter and threw it to the ground. Rice scattered everywhere. The meat rolled across the floor. "You useless girl," she screamed. "You are feeding a worthless mechanic while I am the one feeding you." "Shut up," Mama Chica said with a thunderous voice. "Follow me now." Blessing's legs felt weak, but she had no choice but to follow as Mama Chica marched straight to the mechanic shop. The moment they arrived at the mechanic shop, all the workers turned to stare. John was busy fixing a car when he heard angry footsteps approaching. He looked up just in time to see Mama Chica storming toward him, dragging Blessing behind her. "John," she shouted. John stood up quickly, confused. "Madam, what's wrong?" Mama Chica threw a rag at his feet, her face full of disgust. "You are what's wrong," she yelled. "Didn't I warn you to stay away from Blessing, but instead you are using her to steal from me?" John's face darkened. "I never stole anything," he said calmly, "and I never asked her to—" "Shut up," Mama Chica screamed. "You are a useless man, looking for a woman to feed you. If I ever see you near my restaurant again, if I ever hear that you spoke to Blessing, I swear, you will rot in jail." Blessing's heart broke as she saw the hurt in John's eyes. John swallowed hard, clenching his fists. He had never been insulted like this before, but he knew he couldn't fight back. He turned to Blessing, his voice low. "It's okay," he said softly. "Don't cry." Mama Chica dragged Blessing away while John stood there, watching, powerless. That evening, when Mama Chica got home, she told her husband everything. Blessing's uncle was furious. The moment she stepped into the house, he removed his belt. "Come here, Blessing," he commanded in a voice that made her blood run cold. Tears streamed down Blessing's face as she slowly stepped forward. The belt landed hard on her back, burning through her thin dress. He flogged her again. She bit her lip, trying not to scream. "You are too young to have a boyfriend," her uncle shouted. "And of all people, you pick a poor mechanic." Tears ran down Blessing's face. "He is not my boyfriend. I only helped him." He flogged her again. "Shut up," he yelled. Blessing's whole body shook from pain. Mama Chica stood in the corner watching. Then her uncle's voice became cold. "If I hear anything again, I will marry you off to Chief Matthew." Blessing's heart stopped. Chief Matthew, an old man in his 60s. Rich but wicked. Many people knew that his wives suffered in his house. His last wife ran away because he treated her badly. Her lips shook. "No, Please, uncle, don't do this. Her uncle held her chin and lifted her face. If you don't behave, I will take you to his house tomorrow. Blessing felt her world falling apart. That night, Blessing lay on the cold floor, her back aching from the beating. She cried softly, her body shaking with pain. Tears blurred her vision as she stared at the ceiling. Mama? Papa? Please come and save me. She whispered into the night, her voice weak and broken. She had no one to protect her. A week had passed since the incident at the restaurant. Blessing and John had not seen or spoken to each other. Mama Chica watched Blessing closely, making sure she did not go near the mechanic shop. But fate had other plans. One evening, when Mama Chica and Ruth went to visit a relative, Blessing saw an opportunity. She quickly left the house and hurried to the back of the mechanic shop, where she knew John usually rested after work. When she arrived, she found him sitting on a wooden bench, looking tired but deep in thought. The moment he saw her, his face lit up. Blessing, he said softly. She smiled, relieved to see him again. John, I've missed you. John stood up and took her hands in his. I thought I would never see you again. Blessing shook her head. I was being watched. I had to be careful. John sighed. I understand, but I'm glad you're here now. They stood there in silence for a moment, just staring at each other, as if the whole world had disappeared. Then John took a deep breath. Blessing, I have something to tell you. She nodded. What is it? John's voice was low but full of emotion. I love you. Blessing's heart skipped a beat. I have loved you from the moment I saw you, John continued. You are kind, strong, and different from any woman I have ever met. I don't have much now, but one day I will give you the best life. I want to marry you, Blessing. Blessing's eyes widened in shock. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out at first. John waited anxiously. Please, say something. Finally, she sighed and held his hands tightly. John, she whispered, I love you too. John's face broke into a smile. You do? Blessing nodded. Yes, but we need to slow down. John frowned slightly. Slow down. She took a deep breath. John, you are still struggling. You are still learning how to repair cars. I just think, before we talk about marriage, you should at least finish learning, or better still, own your own shop. John was silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. You're right, he said. I need to stand on my own feet first. Blessing smiled. And when you do, I will be here. John felt hope fill his heart. He was about to say something when his phone rang. He checked the screen and sighed heavily. Who is it? Blessing asked. My landlord, John muttered. He answered the call, and Blessing watched as his expression changed from calm to worried. When he ended the call, he looked at her and shook his head. What happened? She asked. John rubbed his forehead. My landlord says I have a few days to pay my rent, or he will evict me. Blessing felt a sharp pain in her heart. Oh, John, I wish I could help, but I have no money, she said sadly. John smiled gently and touched her face. Of course I know you don't have money, my love. Don't worry, I will borrow from a friend. Blessing looked at him, feeling both sad and proud. Despite everything, John never complained or blamed her. She took his hands again. I just pray things get better for you soon. John nodded. They will. I won't give up. That evening, Blessing sat on her small mattress, her heart heavy. She couldn't stop thinking about John and the way his face had fallen when he told her about his landlord's call. How would he pay his rent? Where would he go? She had to do something. She couldn't just sit back and watch him suffer. Her uncle was a wealthy man. He always had lots of money lying around the house. He would never notice if a small amount went missing. The thought of stealing made her stomach turn, but was it really stealing if she was helping someone? She waited until the house was quiet. Mama Chica and Ruth were gossiping in the backyard, and her uncle was out drinking with his friends. She tiptoed into his room, her heart pounding. There, on the table, was a bundle of money wrapped with a rubber band. She grabbed a few notes, just enough to cover John's rent, and quickly hid them in her dress. Her hands were shaking as she left the room. The next morning, Blessing left the house early. She hurried to the mechanic shop, looking around to make sure nobody saw her. John was standing outside. When he saw her, he smiled. Blessing, you came. She pulled him aside, her eyes darting around. "John, I have something for you." She reached into her dress and pulled out the money. John's smile faded. "What is this?" he asked, confused. "It's for your rent," Blessing whispered. "Take it before your landlord throws you out." John stared at the money, then at her. "Blessing, where did you get this?" Blessing bit her lip. She didn't want to lie to him. I took it from my uncle." John was shocked. "You stole it?" Blessing nodded slowly. John's face darkened with disappointment. He pushed the money back toward her. "Blessing, I can't take this," he said firmly. "Why?" she asked, feeling hurt. "Because it's not yours," John said. "Stealing is wrong, no matter the reason." Blessing's eyes filled with tears. "But I did it for you. I didn't want you to suffer." John sighed. "I know, my love. But this is not the way. If you get caught, what will happen to you?" Blessing looked away. She knew he was right, but she had just wanted to help. John gently held her hands. "Please quickly and quietly return the money before anyone notices it's missing." Blessing nodded slowly. "I won't do it again." John smiled a little. "Good. Now go before you get into trouble." Blessing turned and left, her heart heavy. She never imagined that when she got home, trouble would already be waiting for her. Blessing stepped into the house, trying to act normal. But the moment she entered the living room, she stopped. Her uncle was there, his face dark with anger. His belt was in his hands. Blessing's stomach dropped. Her uncle's voice was sharp. "Blessing, come here." She slowly stepped forward. "I kept money on the table last night. This morning it disappeared. I have asked my wife, I have asked my daughter. Nobody took it." Blessing's legs felt weak. "I don't know." A loud slap landed on her cheek before she could finish. "Liar!" her uncle roared. She staggered back, her face stinging. Her uncle grabbed her and searched her dress. Before she could react, he pulled out the money. The room fell silent. Mama Chica gasped loudly. Ruth's eyes widened. Her uncle's hands shook with rage. "So it's you," he said, his voice dangerously low. "You, the orphan I took into my house. This is how you repay me." Blessing fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Uncle, I'm sorry, He did not let her finish. He raised his belt and flogged her. Again, Blessing screamed in pain. "You are a disgrace," her uncle shouted. "I wish you had died with your parents. Maybe my life would have been better without you." Blessing's heart shattered. Mama Chica just watched, her arms crossed. Her uncle kept flogging her, insulting her, calling her names. Then he stopped. The room was silent except for Blessing's soft sobs. Her uncle dropped his belt and took a deep breath. "In 3 days," he said coldly, "I will marry you off to Chief Matthew." Blessing's head snapped up. "No, please, uncle, don't do this," she cried, crawling toward him. "I promise I won't steal again." Her uncle kicked her away. "I don't care if you don't like him. You must marry him. I will not waste my money feeding a useless thief in my house." Blessing sobbed harder. Her uncle turned to Mama Chica. "Make sure she does not leave this house until her wedding day." Mama Chica nodded. Then her uncle dragged Blessing by the arm and pushed her into her room. He locked the door from outside. Blessing rushed to the door and banged it. "Please, let me out. Uncle, please don't do this to me." No one answered. She sank to the floor, shaking with fear. In 3 days, she would become the wife of a terrible old man. There was no one to save her, not her dead parents. 2 days had passed, and John had not seen Blessing. She didn't come to the restaurant. She didn't come to see him. At first, he thought maybe she was busy. Maybe her aunt had given her extra work at the restaurant. But by the second day, he knew something was wrong. His heart was restless. He couldn't eat. He couldn't focus on work. He had a bad feeling. Had her uncle found out about them? Had they beaten her again? John couldn't wait any longer. He had to see her. He left the mechanic shop and went straight to Blessing's house. When he got there, he looked around. The compound was quiet. Mama Chica and Ruth were not around. Her uncle was not in sight. It was the perfect time. John moved quickly to the side of the house where he knew Blessing's room was. As he got closer, he heard something. Crying. Soft, weak, heartbreaking. John clenched his fists. He stepped closer and tapped gently on the window. "Blessing," he whispered. The crying stopped. For a moment there was silence, then slowly the window creaked open. And there she was. John felt his heart break. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her lips were dry. She looked weak, tired, broken. "John," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. John held the window bars. "Blessing, what happened?" She wiped her tears with shaky hands. "They locked me in here." John's blood boiled. "Why?" he asked, trying to control his anger. Blessing took a deep breath, then whispered the words that made John's whole body turn cold. "They are forcing me to marry Chief Matthew. The wedding is tomorrow." John felt like his heart had stopped. "Tomorrow? So soon?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "That will never happen." Blessing shook her head sadly. "John, I'm scared. My uncle said I have no choice." John's jaw tightened. He wished he could break the window, pull her out, and run away with her. But he couldn't, not yet. He took a deep breath and forced himself to stay calm. "Listen to me," he said. "You will not marry that man. I will make sure of it." Blessing stared at him, her lips trembling. "But how, John? You don't have money. You don't have power. What can you do?" John exhaled sharply. "I don't know yet, but I promise you by tomorrow you will be free." Blessing looked into his eyes, searching for hope. She had no choice. She had to believe him. "I trust you," she whispered. John squeezed her hands. "Good. Now stay strong. I will come back for you." Then, before anyone could see him, he left quickly. John walked back to his small room, his mind racing. This was getting out of control. Blessing was about to be married off like property. Her uncle had beaten her, locked her up. Her life was being destroyed, and he was powerless to stop it. Or was he? John stopped walking. This had gone on for too long. He had hidden his true identity for months, pretending to be a poor mechanic. But now Blessing's life was in danger. Enough was enough. He clenched his fists. "This is getting too much," he muttered. He took a deep breath, then made a decision. "I have to come out clean before it's too late." Tomorrow everything would change. John Okafor, the billionaire, was about to reveal his true self. And he was going to save the woman he loved. Early the next morning, a shiny, expensive car pulled up in front of Blessing's house. The engine purred softly and the doors swung open. John stepped out. He was not in his usual mechanic clothes. Today he wore a well-tailored suit, polished shoes, and a gold wristwatch that gleamed in the sunlight. His presence alone commanded attention. Blessing's uncle, who had been sitting outside drinking his morning tea, froze in shock. Mama Chica and Ruth came out of the house, their eyes widening when they saw John. Ruth gasped loudly, nudging her mother. "Mummy, look," she whispered. John walked up to Blessing's uncle, his steps slow and confident. He stood tall, looking him straight in the eye. "I am here to marry Blessing," he said, his voice strong and clear. Blessing's uncle scoffed, shaking his head. "You must be joking. Blessing is marrying Chief Matthew today. You came here to stop it, but it won't work." John's jaw tightened. "I love Blessing, and I want to marry her. I am not here to beg. I am here to tell you that she is mine." Blessing's uncle burst into laughter. Mama Chica and Ruth laughed too, holding their stomachs like they had just heard the funniest joke of their lives. "John, I know you," her uncle said, pointing at him. "My wife and daughter have told me so many things about you. I know how stupid and poor you are. I know you can't afford all these expensive clothes. I know you borrowed that car from one of your customers just to impress me." John said nothing, just stared at him with a blank face. Blessing's uncle continued, "You are here acting like a big man, but I know the truth. You are just a common mechanic. You want to deceive me to give you Blessing, but it won't happen. Chief Matthew has already sent the bride price. You are wasting your time." John smiled slightly. "Try me and see," he said. "I told you I love Blessing, and I want to marry her. And you are here talking nonsense. Do you even know who I am?" Blessing's uncle laughed even louder, clapping his hands. "You are a very foolish boy. You think you can trick me. You think I don't know what you are doing." He turned to Mama Chica. "Call the police. Let them come and take this fool away." Mama Chica rushed inside and dialed the police. Within minutes, a police van drove in, sirens blaring. 4 policemen stepped out. Blessing's uncle smirked. Now let's see how big you are, John. He turned to the police and pointed at John. Arrest this man. He is a liar and a fraud. He is trying to cause problems in my house. But the moment the police saw John, they froze. Their eyes widened. They quickly straightened and saluted. Sir, good morning, sir. Blessing's uncle frowned. What is going on? Why are you greeting him? One of the officers, looking confused, stepped forward and said, Sir, why are we here? Who is the person to be arrested? Blessing's uncle scoffed. Are you blind? This is the man I called you for. Arrest him. The police officer hesitated, then turned to John. Sir, is this true? He asked respectfully. John smiled. Yes, I am the one they called you to arrest. The police officer immediately shook his head. No, sir, that can never happen. You are the son of our boss. We can't arrest you, and you have done nothing wrong. Blessing's uncle froze on the spot. His body turned cold. What? He stammered. Mama Chica and Ruth gasped loudly. John stepped forward and looked Blessing's uncle straight in the eye. I told you, you don't know who I am. The police officers nodded respectfully. Sir, if this man is disturbing you, we can take him instead, one of them offered. John smirked. No need. He has already learned his lesson. The policeman saluted again, got into their van, and drove away. Blessing's uncle fell to his knees. My son, please forgive me, he cried, holding John's leg. I did not know. I am sorry for everything. Mama Chica, now shaking with fear, came forward and knelt beside her husband. John, please forgive us. We did not know you were a rich man. Ruth, who had insulted John so many times, stood there speechless, her mouth open. Blessing's uncle wiped the sweat from his face and swallowed hard. I will cancel everything with Chief Matthew. Please, John, forgive me. You can come with your people any time to marry Blessing. John put his hands in his pockets and smiled slightly. Okay, no problem, he said calmly. Blessing's uncle quickly stood up and ran inside to call Chief Matthew, telling him the marriage was off. Blessing, who had been watching everything from the window, ran outside to meet John. Tears filled her eyes as she hugged him tightly. I thought I lost you, she whispered. John pulled her close and kissed her forehead. I told you I would come for you, he said softly. I love you so much, Blessing. Blessing wiped her tears and smiled. I love you too, John. John cupped her face and looked into her eyes. I will come in 2 days with my people. Be ready. Blessing nodded, her heart full of joy. John kissed her hands, got into his car, and drove off. As she watched him leave, she smiled for the first time in a long time. She was finally free. And soon she would be his forever. John drove into his parents' massive compound, his heart heavy but determined. The large mansion stood proudly before him, surrounded by neatly trimmed gardens and luxury cars parked in the driveway. He knew this conversation with his parents wouldn't be easy, especially with his mother, but he was ready to stand his ground. As he stepped into the grand living room, his mother, Lady Okafor, was sitting on the elegant sofa, sipping tea. His father, Chief Okafor, sat beside her, reading a newspaper. The house was quiet, except for the soft classical music playing in the background. His mother smiled warmly when she saw him. John, my son, what a pleasant surprise. You hardly visit these days. Sit down, let me get you something to drink. John remained standing, his face serious. Mama, Papa, I came to talk about something important. His father folded his newspaper and looked up. What is it, my son? John took a deep breath. I have found the woman I want to marry. Her name is Blessing. His mother's smile disappeared instantly. She placed her teacup down and gave him a sharp look. Who is she? John stood tall. She is the woman I love. I have already spoken to her family, and in 2 days I want us to go and officially ask for her hand in marriage. His mother's face darkened. Where is she from? Who are her parents? John swallowed hard. She is an orphan. His mother gasped loudly. An orphan? From where? What kind of background? John cleared his throat. She was raised by her uncle and his wife, but they never treated her well. She struggled all her life, working in their restaurant to survive, but she is hard-working, kind, and... His mother raised her hand, cutting him off. Enough, she snapped. I will never allow you to marry a poor, uneducated orphan girl. Never. John clenched his fists. Mama, what does her background have to do with love? I love her, and she loves me. She makes me happy. His mother shook her head aggressively. Love. Love does not pay bills. John, you are a billionaire's son. You need a woman from a wealthy, respectable family. A woman with quality education, class, and status. Not some local girl who has nothing. His father had been quietly listening, his face unreadable. But now he folded his arms and looked at his wife. Let me ask you something, my dear wife, he said calmly. She turned to him, frowning. What is it? His father smiled slightly. When I met you, were you rich? She blinked in shock. What kind of question is that? He leaned back, still watching her. Answer me. Were you from a wealthy family? She sighed, clearly uncomfortable. No, I wasn't. Did you go to the best schools? She looked away. No, I didn't. Did you have anything before I met you? She hesitated, then admitted, No, I didn't. John was silent, watching closely. His father chuckled lightly. When I first met you, you were unkempt and struggling. You looked like a village girl who had seen suffering. But I saw potential in you. I sent you to school, sponsored your university education, and transformed you into the elegant woman you are today. His mother shifted in her seat. That was different. His father smirked. Oh, really? How is it different? Didn't I marry you despite your poor background? Didn't I invest in you? And now, because you wear designer clothes and drive luxury cars, you think you are better than where you came from. She sighed heavily. That's not the point. This is my son we are talking about. I want the best for him. His father leaned forward, his tone serious. And what if Blessing is the best for him? What if she is the one who will love him, stand by him, and make him truly happy? Will you deny your son happiness because of class and money? Lady Okafor scoffed. I don't care. I have made up my mind. I will not allow my son to marry that girl, never. John stood up abruptly, his voice firm. Mama, whether you like it or not, I am marrying Blessing. Nobody will stop me. His mother gasped. John, how dare you speak to me like that? John clenched his jaw. Because I am tired, Mama. I have made my decision, and I will not change it. Blessing is the woman I love, and she will be my wife. His mother stood up angrily. You will regret this, John. I am your mother, and I have a say in who you marry. His father stood up as well. John, my son, don't worry. I am solidly behind you. John turned to him, his heart filled with gratitude. Thank you, Papa. His father patted him on the back. In 2 days, we will go and bring your wife home. Let's see who will stop us. His mother folded her arms, fuming with anger. Do whatever you want, but don't expect me to welcome her into this house. John nodded. I don't need your approval, Mama. I just need your blessing. But even without it, I will still marry her. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving his mother sitting there, stunned and speechless. His father smiled proudly. In 2 days, they would bring Blessing home, and no one, not even his wife, would stop them. 2 days later, John and his father arrived at Blessing's house, their hearts filled with excitement and determination. John had been waiting for this day, the day he would finally take the woman he loved home. His father was by his side, ready to support him no matter what. As they stepped out of the car, they noticed something strange. The compound was too quiet. Usually Mama Chica and Ruth would be outside, chatting or working. But today there was no sign of them. Even Blessing's uncle, who was always seated in front of the house drinking tea, was nowhere to be seen. John's chest tightened with unease. He glanced at his father. Something feels wrong. Chief Okafor nodded. Let's go in. They walked up to the door and knocked. After a few seconds, Blessing's uncle appeared, his face dull and serious. His eyes looked red, as if he had been crying. John frowned. Good afternoon, sir. We are here as promised. I have come with my father to take Blessing home. Blessing's uncle sighed deeply, his shoulders falling as if he carried the weight of the world. I don't know how to say this, John, he began, his voice heavy with sorrow, but Blessing is dead. John froze. He blinked, trying to process what he had just heard. His heart stopped for a moment. His father, equally shocked, stepped forward. "What did you just say?" Blessing's uncle lowered his head. "She died last night." John felt his world tilt. "Number, that's not possible. Blessing was never sick." "How? What happened?" His uncle wiped his face and said, "We woke up in the morning and found her dead in her room. We couldn't do anything. We buried her immediately according to our tradition." John staggered back. His legs suddenly felt weak. "This is a lie," he whispered, shaking his head. "This is not happening." His father placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Calm down, my son." Then he turned to Blessing's uncle. "If what you are saying is true, why did you not call my son? Why did you bury her so quickly without informing him?" Blessing's uncle let out a deep sigh. "We did not want to stress him, Chief. He is a busy man, and we didn't want to disturb him with bad news." John stared at him, eyes full of disbelief. "Stress me? You didn't want to stress me. You think hiding my fiancée's death from me is something small." He grabbed his phone and tried calling Blessing's number. It was switched off. John's hands began to shake. He refused to accept this. Blessing was alive 2 days ago. She was fine. How could she just die like that? His uncle suddenly cleared his throat and put on a small smile. "John, I know this is hard, but listen. Since Blessing is gone, why don't you marry my daughter Ruth?" John's head snapped up. "What did you just say?" His uncle continued quickly. "Ruth is a graduate, very classy, well-educated, and more beautiful than Blessing. I know she will make a good wife for you." John felt something hot rise in his chest. His father, too, looked at the man in disgust. John took a deep breath, trying to control his anger. "You must be out of your mind," he said. "Blessing just died, and you are already telling me to marry Ruth." Blessing's uncle laughed nervously. "John, think about it. My daughter is—" Before he could finish, John pointed a finger at him, his eyes burning with anger. "Let me warn you now. If I don't see Blessing by tomorrow, you will regret ever knowing me." Blessing's uncle's smile disappeared instantly. John turned and stormed back to the car. His father followed, his face dark with disappointment. They entered the car and drove off, leaving Blessing's uncle standing there, sweat forming on his forehead. The moment John and his father were gone, Blessing's uncle rushed inside the house, slamming the door behind him. His wife stood up immediately, her face full of worry. "How did it go?" He wiped his sweaty face. "We are in trouble," he muttered. "John didn't believe me. He said if he doesn't see Blessing by tomorrow, I will regret ever knowing him." Mama Chica's eyes widened in fear. "What do we do?" Blessing's uncle grabbed her arm. "We need to leave this house, now." Ruth, who had been eavesdropping, stepped forward. "But why? Where will we go?" Her father turned to her sharply. "John is not a man to play with. He is a billionaire's son. Do you think he will let this go just like that? He will come back tomorrow, and if he finds us here, we are finished." Mama Chica grabbed a bag and started throwing clothes into it. "Then we have to go fast. We will stay with my sister in another town." Blessing's uncle nodded quickly. "Hurry up. We don't have time." They packed in a rush, grabbing money and valuables. Within minutes, they were outside carrying their bags. Ruth's voice was shaky. "Are we really running away because of John?" Her father didn't answer. He just looked around to make sure nobody was watching, then signaled them to enter the car. As they drove off, fear gripped them. Because deep down, they knew John was coming back. John and his father arrived home, their faces full of shock and anger. John could barely think straight. His heart was pounding and his hands were shaking. He could not believe what had just happened. The love of his life, the woman he had fought so hard for, was gone. Just like that. His mother was waiting for them in the living room, watching their expressions closely. She could tell something was wrong. The happiness that should have followed their visit to Blessing's family was missing. Instead, a heavy silence filled the air. "What is it?" she asked, looking from John to her husband. John's father let out a deep sigh before speaking. "We got there, only to be told that Blessing is dead." John's mother froze. For a long moment, she did not say a word. Her eyes were fixed on John's face, waiting for some kind of explanation. Then, in a low voice, she asked, "Was she ever sick?" John shook his head aggressively. "No, Mama. She was never sick. She was fine just 2 days ago. We spoke, and she was perfectly okay." John's mother frowned deeply. Then how can she just die like that? John ran his hands over his face, frustration burning inside him. Mama, I don't believe it. They are lying. They buried her immediately without telling me. His father nodded in agreement. Something is not right. It doesn't make sense. John turned to his father, his jaw tight with determination. We must find out the truth. We cannot just sit here and accept this. His father patted his shoulder. Then we must act fast. John took his phone and dialed the police immediately. The police arrived within an hour. John wasted no time explaining everything to them. This whole story does not make sense, he said firmly. Blessing was fine just 2 days ago. Then suddenly, they tell me she is dead. And they buried her without informing me. The police inspector nodded seriously. We will begin an investigation immediately. The officers went straight to Blessing's uncle's house, but when they got there, the house was empty. The doors were locked, and the neighbors confirmed that they had left in a hurry earlier that day. The police immediately spread out, questioning locals, checking nearby towns, and tracing the family's last movements. After hours of searching, a security guard gave them an important tip. He reported seeing men carrying a tied-up girl into an uncompleted building on the outskirts of town. Without wasting time, the police rushed to the location. The police arrived at the uncompleted building, their sirens off to avoid alerting the kidnappers. The area was quiet, surrounded by thick bushes and broken walls. The officers moved in swiftly, their guns drawn, their eyes sharp. 2 men stood at the entrance, smoking and laughing, unaware of the danger approaching. Before they could react, the police pounced on them, forcing them to the ground. The men struggled, but the officers were faster. Where is the girl? One of the officers barked. One of the kidnappers refused to speak, but the other, out of fear, pointed towards the inside of the building. She's inside, he stammered. Please don't kill us. The police left some officers to handle them and rushed into the building. Inside, the air was damp, the walls covered in dust and cobwebs. In the corner of the dark room, Blessing sat tied to a chair, her head slumped forward. An officer rushed to her, his heart tightening at the sight. Her face was swollen, her dress torn, her lips dry. He gently tapped her shoulder. Madam, wake up. We are here to save you. Slowly, Blessing's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she was too weak to react, then realization dawned on her. The police had come. She burst into tears. Please, help me, she whispered. Another officer quickly untied the ropes around her hands and feet. The moment she was free, her body slumped forward, too weak to stand. The officers lifted her gently, supporting her. You're safe now, one of them said. No one will hurt you again. Blessing sobbed in relief. For days, she had thought she was going to die, but now, she had been saved. The officers led her outside, where the kidnappers had already been handcuffed and placed in the police van. One of them was crying. It was her uncle. He told us to do it. Please, I swear, it wasn't our idea. The police ignored them. Their mission was not complete. They had to find Blessing's uncle and bring him to justice. They carefully placed Blessing in their vehicle and sped off towards the station. After rescuing Blessing and arresting the kidnappers, the police wasted no time. They had one more mission, to find Blessing's uncle and his wife. The kidnappers had already confessed. They told the police everything. It was her uncle, one of them cried. He paid us to kill her. He said she didn't deserve to marry into wealth while his own daughter had no serious relationship. Please, we were just following orders. The police officers exchanged looks. They had dealt with wicked people before, but this was pure evil. The inspector in charge immediately gave orders. Find him and his wife. They must not escape. The police moved swiftly, using all their contacts and informants. Within a few hours, they received a tip-off. Blessing's uncle, his wife, and Ruth were at the bus park, trying to escape to another town. The police rushed to the location, arriving just in time. The park was busy, filled with travelers carrying bags, shouting conductors, and buses lined up waiting for passengers. But in the middle of the crowd, the police spotted them. Blessing's uncle stood by a bus, wearing a cap and sunglasses, pretending to be an ordinary traveler. Mama Chica stood beside him, nervously clutching a bag. Ruth, their daughter, was looking around, as if afraid someone was following them. They thought they had escaped. They were wrong. The police moved in quickly. Stop right there. an officer commanded, pointing a gun at them. The moment Blessing's uncle heard the voice, he panicked. He turned and tried to run, pushing people out of his way. But he didn't get far. Within seconds, a police officer grabbed him from behind and threw him to the ground. "Let me go! I didn't do anything!" he screamed, kicking and struggling. Mama Chica fell to her knees, shaking. "Officer, please, have mercy." The officer ignored her. "You are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy and kidnapping. Anything you say will be used against you in court." Ruth, who had been standing frozen in shock, suddenly started crying. "Please, my father did everything. I didn't know about it." One of the police officers turned to her. "Young lady, if you didn't know about it, why are you running?" Ruth couldn't answer. She just covered her face in shame. The police handcuffed Blessing's uncle and his wife and dragged them towards the waiting van. As Blessing's uncle was thrown into the police van, he shouted angrily, "John did this to me. I should have killed that girl when I had the chance." One of the officers turned and slapped the back of his head. "Shut your mouth. You are going to rot in prison." With that, the van sped off, heading straight for the station. At the police station, Blessing's uncle and his wife were dragged into the interrogation room. The kidnappers had already confessed, so there was no escape. The moment they sat down, the inspector in charge walked in, his face full of disgust. He dropped a file on the table and glared at them. "You are both very wicked people," he said. "Your own niece, your own blood, and you planned to kill her just because she was about to marry a rich man." Blessing's uncle looked away, refusing to speak. The inspector continued, "Not only that, but you also killed her parents years ago and stole their properties. You thought nobody would ever find out." Blessing's uncle's face changed immediately. He looked at the inspector in shock. "How? Who told you that?" he stammered. The inspector smiled coldly. "Your men already confessed, and we also have proof." He opened the file and pulled out some documents. "This is evidence that you stole your brother's properties. This is evidence that you hired men to kill him and his wife. This is evidence that you ordered Blessing's murder." Blessing's uncle's body shook with fear. Mama Chica, who had been silent all along, suddenly burst into tears. "Please, officer, it was my husband. It was his idea. I didn't want to do it. He forced me." The inspector laughed bitterly. "Oh, really? Then explain why you helped him cover up the crime. Why did you help him try to kill Blessing? Why did you pack your bags and run?" She had no answer. The inspector banged the table. "You both are evil. Your greed and wickedness almost destroyed an innocent girl's life. But thank God you failed." Blessing's uncle suddenly broke down. He buried his face in his hands and shook his head. "I was jealous. I hated my brother. He had everything. I wanted what he had. I thought if I took everything, I would be happy. But even after taking his properties, I still felt empty." The inspector shook his head. "And now, you will pay for your crimes." A few weeks later, Blessing's uncle and his wife stood before the judge. The courtroom was packed. Many people came to watch the trial. John and his parents were seated in the front row. Blessing, now fully recovered, sat beside them, holding John's hand. The judge looked at the accused and shook his head. "The evidence before me is clear. You murdered your brother and his wife, you kidnapped and attempted to murder their only child, and you tried to escape justice. You are both heartless." Blessing's uncle stood there trembling, his hands shaking. Mama Chica cried loudly, but nobody pitied her. The judge continued, "For all your crimes, I sentence you both to 170 years in prison without parole." The courtroom erupted in shock. Some gasped, others whispered. John turned to Blessing and squeezed her hand. It was over. The people who had made her suffer all her life were finally getting what they deserved. Blessing's uncle and his wife were dragged away, screaming and begging for mercy. But nobody listened. Justice had been served. After the court sentenced Blessing's uncle and his wife to 170 years in prison, John and his family returned home. The house was quiet, but there was a heavy tension in the air. John's mother, Lady Okafor, sat on the sofa, lost in deep thought. Everything that had happened, the lies, the betrayal, the pain Blessing had suffered, had shaken her to the core. She watched as John sat down, his face still serious, his mind elsewhere. His father took a seat beside him, but it was clear that John was still thinking about everything that had happened. The woman he loved had suffered so much. And for what? Greed, jealousy, wickedness. Lady Okafor sighed deeply, then stood up and walked towards her son. "John," she said softly. He looked up at her but said nothing. She took a deep breath, then slowly sat down beside him. "My son, I need to talk to you." John's father glanced at her, curious. "Go ahead, we're listening." Lady Okafor swallowed hard, her voice filled with regret. "John, I have thought about everything I said before, and I now realize how wrong I was." John sat up straight, surprised. "What are you saying, Mama?" She reached out and took his hands in hers, something she had not done in a long time. Her eyes were teary. "I have been unfair to you. I have been unfair to Blessing. I let pride and class blind me. I thought wealth and status were more important than love. I thought Blessing wasn't good enough for you, but today I have seen the truth. That girl is strong, kind, and deserving of happiness. And most importantly, she loves you." John's chest tightened with emotions. He had fought his mother for months over Blessing, and now she was finally saying what he had always wanted to hear. Lady Okafor wiped a tear from her cheek. "I now accept Blessing as my daughter-in-law, and I am sorry for everything I said before. My son, please forgive me." John stared at his mother for a long time, then slowly a small smile appeared on his face. He squeezed her hands gently. "Mama," he said, his voice full of warmth, "I forgave you a long time ago." She let out a deep sigh of relief and pulled him into a tight embrace. "Thank you, my son. Thank you." John's father, who had been silently watching, smiled proudly. "This is how it should be. Love, forgiveness, and family. I am proud of you, son." Lady Okafor turned to her husband. "And I want to apologize to you too. You were right all along. Love is more important than money." Chief Okafor nodded. "I am happy you finally see it." At that moment, all past mistakes were forgotten. The family was whole again. The wedding preparations were in full swing. Blessing had gone to a beautiful boutique to pick up some last-minute items. She walked through the store, carefully selecting accessories when, suddenly, she felt a presence behind her. She turned around and froze. It was Ruth. Ruth stood there, looking different. She was no longer the proud, arrogant girl Blessing once knew. Instead, her face was pale, her eyes swollen with tears. "Blessing," Ruth whispered. Blessing's heart pounded. She hadn't seen Ruth since her parents' arrest. Suddenly, Ruth fell to her knees and started crying. "Please forgive me," she sobbed. Blessing was taken aback. "Ruth, what are you doing?" Ruth covered her face, her body shaking. "It was the devil's work. I let jealousy and my mother's influence destroy me. I was wrong, Blessing. I should have supported you instead of treating you like an enemy." Blessing felt tears well up in her own eyes. Ruth continued, "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, I am truly sorry for everything. I should have been your sister, not your enemy." Blessing took a deep breath, then gently helped Ruth stand up. "Ruth," she said softly, looking into her eyes, "I forgive you." Ruth's eyes widened in shock. "Just like that?" Blessing nodded. "Yes, we have all made mistakes. I won't let the past control the future. I forgive you." Ruth broke down into fresh tears and hugged Blessing tightly. "You don't know how much this means to me," she whispered. Blessing smiled. "If you truly want to make peace, then come to my wedding. I would love for you to be there." Ruth gasped. You're inviting me?" Blessing smiled warmly. "Yes, come and celebrate with us." Ruth nodded quickly, more tears spilling down her face. "Thank you, Blessing. Thank you so much." At that moment, the past was finally left behind. Finally, the long-awaited day arrived. The atmosphere was filled with joy, music, and celebration. Guests filled the large wedding hall, which was beautifully decorated with golden lights and elegant flowers. Blessing stood at the entrance, wearing a breathtaking white gown, her beauty radiating like the sun. John stood at the altar, his heart pounding as he watched her walk toward him. The ceremony began, and as the priest spoke, John and Blessing never took their eyes off each other. "Do you, John Okafor, take Blessing to be your lawfully wedded wife?" John smiled deeply. "With all my heart I do." And do you, Blessing, take John to be your lawfully wedded husband? Blessing's voice was soft, but full of unshakable love. I do. The priest smiled. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. John gently lifted Blessing's veil and pressed a soft, loving kiss on her lips. The entire church erupted in cheers. John's mother, once against the marriage, wiped her tears and clapped joyfully. Chief Okafor stood proudly, knowing his son had fought for love and won. Ruth, now reformed, smiled from her seat, grateful that she had been given another chance. As John and Blessing walked down the aisle hand in hand, they knew that their journey together was just beginning. But one thing was certain: they had won. Love had triumphed, and nothing, not even the past, could ever separate them again. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.